Be honest with yourself for a second. How much of what you're doing at work right now is actually working? That question came up again and again at Insights EDU last year. You guys already know this isn't your typical higher ed conference. And I've got to be honest, I've been to a lot of higher ed events, and Insights EDU is just different. The conversations are direct, the sessions are outstanding, and the people in the room are there to fix real problems, not defend the status quo. That's why Insights EDU 2026 matters. It's 3 days in Fort Lauderdale, February 17 to 19, focusing on real strategy for higher ed. No fluff, no recycled playbooks, just what works now. You can keep wasting time with what feels safe, or you can get in the room where smarter decisions are being made. Register today at insightsedu.com.
You just made the list!
EdUp Experience has brought you powerful conversations with more than 400 college presidents and higher ed leaders, over 1,000 episodes and counting. Now, we're inviting you to join us in shaping the future of higher ed podcasting. For just $5.99 a month, you lock in that rate for life. But only if you sign up before December 31st, 2025. As a supporter, you'll get ad-free early access to episodes. Prices go up after December 31st, but your rate never will. Visit edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com. Click support the show and join our community today.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and we are back on another episode of our EdUp Extra series. Why? Because who doesn't love a little extra goodness in their life? Speaking of a little extra goodness, first I have to say my voice is a little off. It's that time of the year because I'm feeling a little sicky, but it's okay. We'll get through it. I'm not going to talk that much. I'm going to let my co-host talk a lot. He is Darius Goldman. He's a founder and CEO at Carroll Bond. Darius, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Love being here, Elvin. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So let's get it going. Let's get her in. I met her in person. She's fantastic. She's fantabulous. So happy to have her on the podcast. She is Dr. Sarah Houghton. She's assistant provost at Carroll University and part of the EdUp Experience Podcast Network. She is host of the Get Down to College Business podcast. Sarah, how you doing today?
Great, Elvin and Darius. So good to be here today. And I will just add that I am a proud member of the EdUp family. And I just have to affirm you and Joe. You two are so generous in the higher ed podcast community. You guys have become trailblazers for the rest of us. So thanks for allowing me the time to have this conversation with you both today.
Thank you so much. That's very nice of you, Sarah. It was very nice to meet you at Higher Ed PodCon, the first one this past July. And hopefully we'll see you in Cleveland in July 2026, which would be great. And hopefully you'll be joining our Higher Education Podcast Association, HEPA Global, which we're working on.
Absolutely. Hope to be an original member.
Yes, a founding member. Yes,
Yeah.
That would be awesome. All right, Sarah. So you got a lot going on. So I want to know all about what you do and how you do it. Talk to us.
Yeah, great. So I do wear a number of hats. My day job is, as you mentioned earlier, assistant provost at Carroll University, which is in Waukesha, Wisconsin. It's a little, maybe 20 minutes west of Milwaukee on the way to Madison. It's a cute, urban, suburban type campus, very pretty. It's the oldest 4-year chartered institution in Wisconsin. So we're older than the state of Wisconsin itself. So we're very proud of our heritage. We're the pioneers. We like to pioneer new programs. And so, as you guys know, remaining relevant in higher ed is so important with our academic offerings and then what we do outside of the classroom as well to kind of develop our students holistically. So as assistant provost, what do you do? I mean, sometimes I joke and I say, well, I do push a lot of paper, and that is true. I'm in charge of our HLC accreditation, so I'm the ALO, and so accreditation is within my wheelhouse. I also oversee our general education program, and, you know, it takes a lot to make a general education program really high quality, and we've made some changes in the last year to align more with employer expectations. So what are our students learning beyond their major? That was a huge push for us to prepare them for the workforce and for their other classes. I think Gen Ed is just good for learning about research and critical thinking skills and, how to give a presentation and how to work in a team. And so it makes them better students while they're in their undergraduate experience. Carroll does serve a lot of undergraduate students. Some of our fastest growing programs is the animal behavior program. Our nursing program is super strong. We have some really great health professions majors as well. And so it's pretty exciting to be a part of that. And then our graduate programs are growing as well. We recently opened our first PhD program, which is very exciting, and it's exceeding all enrollment expectations. So that's a really bright spot. We had our largest incoming class ever. I believe the number was 814 for this fall.
Nice.
And we had more commuters than ever. So we're becoming a bit more diverse in type of students. We had more commuters than ever before, and we had more first generation students than ever before. So we're at about 40% for our incoming class right now. So it's really exciting, but also adapting to learn how to serve students in new ways is, part of our own learning is, how do we serve them? So that's my day job. Oh, and I also oversee study abroad, and I also oversee strategic planning. So I guess like you said, Alvin, right? I can't rest on one thing. I don't like to be bored. I like variety. So I bop around at work, and that's been super fun. That's my day job. And then just like you, I got the side hustle of the podcast. So Get Down to College Business is, as you mentioned, part of the EdUp Experience Network. And I try to explore the business and operations side of higher ed. So basically, I'm trying to help us all figure out, how do we do the work a little bit better? And I wanted to make the podcast accessible, very bite-sized chunks of topics that are meant for higher ed leaders. But I wanted to bring in business experts too. So naturally, I interview a lot of higher ed people, but I love bringing in people from industry because they have such different perspectives. And I think higher ed can really learn a lot from what other people say. So we talk about everything from, when's the right time to change your budget model to how do we actually treat our employees in a way to retain them? Because that's good business too. When our employees feel good, they stay and they're gratified and they do their best work. And then everything in between. So I have, some fun stuff coming out too. I'm going to talk about sportscasting and the future of that within the higher ed circles. All different kinds of things. So check it out. Get Down to College Business.
Oh, fantastic. I look forward to hearing that. So my follow-up before I pass it over to Darius is I've been thinking about a lot about this lately because we have a lot of higher ed leaders who are listening to the podcast, and I wanted to take away something. So what's been your aha moment recently, whether professionally or through the podcast, or a time when you're like, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't think about that, or that's really interesting. Kind of made you think like, oh, wow, that's cool. Can you share that story? Because I would love for the audience to be like, oh, maybe they didn't hear about that. Maybe they didn't know about that, and share that. So that'd be great.
So let me try to delve back into my memory and think of one specific, but I'll tell you more of a theme of ahas. Is that the type of guests that I tend to attract and want to interview are those that seem to be a bit outspoken and maybe in academic circles, borderline controversial. Maybe they aren't thinking about how the old ways should be the current ways or the future ways. It's probably more of the early adopters of something, and they might be pushing the envelope on what they're saying and maybe taking a bit of courage and risk to say, we need to look at shared governance and how that is maybe needs to look a little different in the future, or, anything that AI, the first couple of years we talked about AI, it was almost like we were trying to stop the tsunami with our hands and say, no, slow down. Our students need to be thinking independently. I feel like the conversation has completely changed. And the type of guests that I want to talk about with AI are the ones who are saying, here's how we're going to integrate it. Here's how we're going to teach our students ethical and appropriate use of it. Here's what the workforce is expecting of AI literacy of our graduates. And we're not there. And here's how we could get there. So I think that's more of the general aha that has been really fascinating for me. I mean, part of the reason I wanted to do the podcast selfishly was my own professional development. I want to learn from the most brilliant minds out there. We all can read the same old stuff and we do, but I really want to have conversations with people who are trying new things and are taking risks. And it doesn't mean all those risks are going to pay off or work out perfectly. It might be the second attempt at something that is better. But they're out there trying new things because, I mean, you both know, right? Darius and Alvin, higher ed needs a spark. It needs to rebrand itself. It might need to reinvent itself. It definitely needs to be more nimble and adaptable to what the external drivers are telling me.
And before Darius, I just want to say, I love the saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I feel like for me, I'm always in the right room because I have two brilliant minds. I'm like, yes, speaking of brilliant minds, over to you, Darius.
Oh, Alvin, it's so true. And sometimes when I interview some of my guests who are the most brilliant minds, it's all I can do just to try to figure out a good follow-up question. I can't be an individual contributor, but I might be able to pull out a question, and that's the best I can do. So I can relate.
Like this resonates deeply. Normally I'm curious about conversations and the questions I ask are based on my general curiosity. But what you said, like, emotionally hit me because I feel like it encapsulates the journey I've been through. I find what's so rewarding, but also so difficult about higher ed is you have these grand ideas of how to do it better, how to make it better, how to make the student experience better, how to democratize access to education. But we're in, general statement, we're in one of the most lethargic or bureaucratic or stay the course industries. And in other industries, you're rewarded to be a maverick. You're rewarded to take chance. You're rewarded to take risk. In higher ed, I feel like without personal resilience, you actually are getting punished to be a maverick, to take risk, to be entrepreneurial. And it takes such resilience to stay the course when everyone is, I'm going to say, bureaucratic. And of course, I'm not talking about everyone. But anyway, so that's my reaction to what you said, Sarah.
Yeah, and I really liked how you phrased that academics are not typically rewarded for taking risk. In fact, the more you stick your neck out, the more you're going to get smacked, right? It's actually easier to stay in the middle or neutral or just with what worked in the past. And so I really appreciate that. And that is actually why I like to bring in business leaders to talk on my show, because they bring a different perspective. And you may not agree with everything. You surely don't have to, but maybe it opens your eyes to how what kind of industries we're putting our graduates in and saying, well, maybe that's a perspective that we should be exploring a little more. So I really like how you phrased that.
Thank you. No, I feel like there's a lot to cover and a lot we could get into. I have this analogy that I use, and where in the student loan industry, private student loans, most students need to take a private student loan to get, to further their education. And I compare it against the different industries, what you see with home purchases and car purchases, because both of those are also high ticket items, right? The home is probably your most significant purchase. The car may be your second, after education, right? Home, education, car. Both the other industries have this concept of pre-qualifying the student. See what your earning capacity is, see what your borrowing capacity is, and let's get you in the right product. In fact, the joke is car dealerships won't let you leave until they put you in that car and then put you in a payment plan that you can afford. I find that with professional education, maybe not as much as the undergraduate level, because you have the government programs that, for the most part, are sufficient. But at the graduate and then the career school level, students go into this situation not knowing what their borrowing power is, not knowing what their affordability power is, and they don't find out till the end. So to your point of borrowing from other industries, these are concepts that work with home, with auto, but I feel like it becomes a dirty word to try and use it with career education.
Yeah, that's interesting. And let me just kind of go in a direction. And I don't know if this is where
Yeah.
you were headed, but I think about that analogy, right? Your education and paying for your education versus paying for a car or versus paying for a house. But in my mind, I think about how an education is an investment in yourself. And as long as you finish that degree, the investment comes back and you get that money back. We're still seeing, gains of over a lifetime earnings of $1 million. A car? I'm not really a car person, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but you don't get that money back and it's transactional. I didn't have to do anything to earn that car, right? I hand over money. They let me drive home in the car. The house is sort of in the middle because a house can be an investment into yourself as well, right? It's a hard asset. You put the money in. Theoretically, you get most of it back, if not a little bit more or less, right? So it's a little bit of a different scenario in my mind, because that education, you do still have to earn that credential.
You have to put effort. It's not Netflix. You can't just watch it and absorb it. If you leave the institution with either skills readiness or a more open world perspective, you mentioned earlier about the employer expectations and the soft skills and the presentation skills, you absolutely do get that ROI on it. I agree with what you said. The view that I was coming in from originally, and it sounds like we're broadening the discussion, the view that I was coming in with was just the transactional nature of, can you finance the education that you want to acquire for yourself, even though there's the investment, even though there's the return on investment, but can you actually pay for the course that you want to take, right? Because unless it's free, someone has to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that you brought it back with that affordability discussion. And that's so important. And we know that college is less and less affordable for students. And so I really appreciate what you do, which is finding a good match for students. How will they be able to afford it and what can they afford? I'm a Gen Xer and Gen Xers had all the college debt in the world, right? And so we're a little bit more cynical. I think we're the biggest right now. I think we might be the biggest critics of higher ed. We are also questioning, especially those who have had college debt and took 10, 20, 30, 40 years to pay off their debt. They're like, I don't know if it's worth it. So maybe we go, even if we could afford to send our children to a really nice school, maybe we don't. Maybe we ask them to go to more of a career college or a community college or commute from home to save on housing or other options that they're exploring.
I'm with you. So I'm also a Gen Xer. I think my kids would just call me a boomer, but I'm
Yeah,
also
mine
Gen
do
X.
too.
I feel
Oh,
like
you're such a boomer,
you're such a
Mom.
boomer. There's no Gen X. It's just you're either you're a boomer or a millennial. Gen X has disappeared.
And Gen Xers don't have it in them to identify with the millennials. So then we just end up being called boomer and shrug our
Boomers,
shoulders.
right? Yeah, we're boomers by default. But so like hearing you say that, two vivid memories come back to me. One is I did the Gen X path. My father was in the Air Force. He actually sat me down one day when I was 18. I thought I was going to get one of his famous lectures, but he actually said something noble. And this was his serious conversation. I wasn't ready for it, and I didn't appreciate the words until years later. But he goes, "Son, I don't have a business to give you." He's a doctor. If I stop seeing patients, I stop earning. Right? I'm going to give you an education, and what you do with that is on you. And it was such a gift. And so, yes, my parents subsidized, paid for my education along with loans that they helped with. But what a gift that was, and what acknowledgement from him. I don't have a business to give you. I'll give you an education. And now go with God, right? Sort of. So I went to Cornell. I went to Georgetown Law. He covered my undergrad. I had to cover my graduate. But the Gen X approach of all that debt, my next fond memory is, so I did, before I got into ed tech, I did the corporate law. I was actually quite successful at that, made partner at a New York City firm, rode that out for a decade plus. I remember the day that I paid off the rest of my student debt. I remember this vividly. I sat down at my kitchen table. I opened up a bottle of wine and I cheered myself. I didn't have anyone to drink with, but I opened up a bottle of wine to salute to the day that I became student debt free. I think you and I, we did grow up in a different period because now you fast forward to, I'm a parent, I have 3 children, and I went to 2 Ivy League schools, but I tell them, you don't need to go to college. Go get a trade, go learn a skill. You want sports marketing? I don't know if you need a 4-year degree for that, but like, get a career is not necessarily the same as saying go to a 4-year school anymore. And it's funny because you are at Carroll University in you do so many things, but I would love to hear about your views on that, either as a parent or as a assistant provost. I am now of the view, and spoiler alert, I don't think college is for everyone. I think education is wonderful. I think education is a luxury that's wonderful. I think a majority of America might not be able to afford that luxury and might just need concrete skills training at perhaps a fraction of the cost, at perhaps a fraction of the time commitment. But maybe that's a provocative statement, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that from your provost position, but then also as your parent position, and also as I'm a podcast host and I speak to like brilliant business people all the time. So 3 answers to the same question, please, ma'am.
Attention.
Let's talk for a second. Higher ed is moving fast, and not everything we're doing is keeping pace. Either you move with the future, or you get left behind. Insights EDU is where leaders find out what actually works. February 17th to 19th in Fort Lauderdale. Register at insightsedu.com.
Support the EdUp experience for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life. You'll get ad-free early access to episodes. But hurry, price goes up after December 31st, 2025. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and click support the show.
I love it. I agree with that sentiment. I actually do not believe the 4-year experience is for every student coming out of high school either. We see them in our classrooms. They don't want to be there. It didn't seem like maybe they had other options. Maybe all their friends were going. Their parents wanted them to. It was an expected pathway for them. They would be better off working, going into the military, traveling if they can afford it, or doing a Peace Corps volunteer, going into the trades with an apprenticeship where you could get paid to work and learn at the same time. There's so many other things for people out there. However, my heart and soul is in higher ed, right? I believe education is the, like a gift. It's a blessing. It's a privilege. And I love it, right? I'm just a learner. So I can't picture not having education as at least an option on the table for, many students. But yeah, it doesn't have to look the same. It might be those short-term credentials that I think the competencies and the skills that employers are wanting are really good options for people. Or maybe people who already have a 4-year or 2-year degree want to come back and extend their learning and upskill in some ways. I think that's another route to expanding yourself. So yeah, I think education looks different for many people. And I think our market has been speaking for a while about this. Give me the skills. I need to show the employer I can do this. Degree is great, but not necessary for all professions and careers. You're totally right. So totally agree with that. So that's my provost response for you, my academic side. Say from a podcast host perspective, I've heard that before. And in fact, I actually brought on a plumber in my area to talk about the trades as being like a really good option. I mean, this plumber, first of all, she's female and she rocks. And she also has her MBA and she's running this show and she's winning awards. And she's actually become like a spokesperson for technical education and doing, like thinking about career paths differently. And so like she's made a great living off of this and it's her passion. So, amazing. Good for her. And as a parent, I probably am biased towards sending my kids to a 4-year college. I probably will swing that way. I talk to my kids pretty regularly about that, and I already have their savings accounts running to make sure we can afford something. Although every time they end up like spending more money on a Target run or on some other frivolous things, I'm always like, well, now you're back to community college. Now you're back to, you can become an esthetician on this, right? And so I tease them and then they look at me and they're not sure, like, is she serious? Is she really taking that Target run out of my savings account? So I'm probably a little biased, but if they did not make the grades, I would not put them. I think sometimes students' high school grades can be a signal that formal education at this time might not be a good use of anyone's time, energy, or money. And so they might be better off pursuing something else.
You mentioned a lot we could go with on that. You mentioned at Carroll, you have first gen students, 40%. You have a record breaking class, 814, I believe you said this fall. Is that demographic? Is it all the traditional 18-year-old going into year one of a 4-year program? Or do you also see like the heat map of, aside from the first gen student, but like non-traditional student or non-traditional learning or professional studies or online transfer? Talk to me.
Yeah, thanks for asking that clarification question. I probably didn't give enough details. So that 814 is actually the number we attribute to first semester, first year students in our undergraduate program. So we had another 100 in of our transfer students who'd had prior college learning, and then we had graduate students that are outside that number. So we are seeing more of a mix, and I think every year the numbers shift a little bit. And so we're definitely seeing some shifting that is, I think, more or less along national trends. I think we're pretty much aligned with that. We would love to see more students come back and do some of we have a few short-term credential offerings, where they can do it fully online and get badges and certifications and certificates and the like. And so we'd love to see that become more of an expansion area for us. I think that is what a lot of people want. Short term, like I don't have time commitment and I might not be able to be on campus 3 to 5 days a week. So it's got to be flexible. It's got to be convenient. I have to see the end, and I have to know that that credential is going to lead to something, whether it's a promotion, a new opportunity, could be self-enrichment too. But most people I think right now are very employer focused.
I would agree with that. I would say while learning is a luxury and you use the terms gift privilege, we're saying the same thing. I think when it comes to that short-term credential, the certificate course, it really is career focused. Hey, right now I'm IT security, but if I do a cybersecurity or a CompTIA 3-month course, I could see promotion and incremental salary at my company, or maybe even interview for a new role. So I think where general learning is a gift, is a privilege, when it comes to the short-term credentials or the certs, as I call them, it really is much more heavily tied to career escalation. Do you, for the credentials that Carroll offers, is it online or is it on site or both?
Yeah, we have both. We have more in person than online, especially the fully online. We have a few programs. We are definitely seeing that those programs tend to be pretty popular quickly. Whereas I think when you start a new in person academic program, there's a lot more recruitment that has to be done. It works for many programs, but I think more and more the marketplace is seeing a shift towards we want some flexibility. And I don't know, I think I actually heard it on this podcast, but I feel like I heard one of your guests talk about how students now are asking, even our traditional undergraduate students, maybe even a residential student, still wants at least one online course per semester. And I remember that for me struck me as like, and that's why our online classes are filling. That's not necessarily from people who aren't on campus. It could be from people who are on campus, but they want some flexibility and freedom. And I do think that some students are actually learning online better. They might have any number of reasons for wanting or expecting an online experience, whether it's to balance out a really heavy, lab schedule, or be able to work part-time or full-time, or have caretaking responsibilities outside of work, or just maybe I don't always want to be in a classroom. Maybe I want a self-paced experience. So, yeah.
I think the problem with the term online, and actually I would pause to let you define it the way Carroll University does it, but we see there's asynchronous, live, there's interactive. I think the biggest misconception with just online generally is it properly designed? And I keep going back. I think I even said this earlier in this conversation. Netflix. It's not Netflix. You can't just turn it on, watch it, absorb it, and now have the mastery. But the better online programs, there's this interactive component. There's this Slack style channel where you could constantly have conversation around it. It's designed that even though it's online, it's very interactive. You're not just watching something passively.
Yeah, agreed. I'll start with, how we define the asynchronous learning
Please.
experience. So at Carroll, it would be considered 100% online. There is no mutual meetings, whether virtually or in person. There's no expectation. However, you would have options, right? So a professor may open up, office hours online. You can show up, that kind of thing. So those might be considered more synchronous format, but fully online and self-paced to a degree. And we've learned that fully self-paced is maybe not the best way to go, because then students wait till the very end of the semester.
They cram it on it.
Yep, that last week of class, 14 different assignments are all getting submitted. So fully self-paced isn't necessarily good for learning and incorporating feedback into future assignments and scaffolding your knowledge. However, a level of self-pace is good, right? Like, hey, we're in module 1 for the first 2 weeks. Then we're going to move on to module 2, but you could, kind of go at your pace within those modules. So that's how we define it. You touched on something that I think makes all the difference. You talked about the proper design of an asynchronous class. I think that's the absolute key. And it's a no-brainer, but yet we still don't always do it well. I've had to I think I converted 5 in-person courses to online. And I'm telling you, that is a real cognitive task. And I consider myself a pretty good educator. That stretched me. And I was never quite happy with them. Even after having taught them 2-3 semesters, I was like, you have to figure out how to engage them, as you talked about. So what are those interactive pieces and components? How do you really check to make sure, if you're really only reading their stuff, are there other ways we can assess them? Can they do multimedia presentations or other types of assessments? So it's not only writing, although I actually really like that they have to write a lot. And I always felt like, I'll tell you the upside for me with an online class is that you can't hide in an online environment. You can hide in an in-person class. You can sit in the middle or the back and you can look at me, make eye contact every, 2 to 3 minutes and pretend like you're listening and then go back to whatever you were doing on your phone or your laptop. We all know how this works inside of a classroom. Online, you cannot hide. So there's an upside to it. And I think people forget about that. Like, it is very obvious when our students are not completing work in an online environment. And but I think the personal side, of course, for me was never quite as satisfying. So that was, of course, the downside. And I think a lot of professors and some students even feel that too, where it's just, you don't really get to know them quite as well in an online environment. You just don't. So sometimes you crave more of the in-person, the impromptu conversations that happened before class started. And yeah.
There's always going to be trade-offs to everything, right? It's the water cooler analogy. When businesses went online or remote, not online but remote during COVID, even the law firms were doing it. But you miss like the stop bys and walk into the partner's office and just listen to a call that you're passing. Like, so yes, there's always going to be a benefit to that on-site in-person mythology. But I guess it goes to your earlier point of, even the students that are doing it purely on site, they want some online time. Balance, right? Balance seems to be the answer to absolutely any question. Proper balance.
Agreed.
Awesome. All right. So we talked about online. We talked about Carroll. Let's talk about AI. How is AI changing the experience at Carroll University? This is like the biggest topic that we love to talk about with everyone in academia. Are you embracing it? Are you afraid of it? Is it too early to tell?
All of the above. So I think Carroll is similar to many schools who it was almost like the students were driving the conversation first. They were the ones showing up with you having used AI tools, whether appropriately or inappropriately, And they were the first adopters on her campus of it. And then quickly thereafter, I know there's some of my colleagues, and I know I use AI for various work tasks. That's actually been really helpful. There's a learning curve to some things, and you can't rest on it. It's not what it spits out at you is not going to be what you actually move forward with. But, of course, it can do a lot of great things to get you started and organize. So I would say right now it's still happening in pockets. We have a AI task force being assembled out of our president's office to address it more locally. I know when I talk to guests on my podcast, I really like the ones that are leading the way. And they are the ones who have fully adopted it and figured out, a classroom management plan for it. Like, what's our approach in the classroom? What's our approach for the workforce? How are we using this to our benefit? So those are the kinds of conversations I enjoy having with people who are really in the mix of it.
So I tend to agree with that. My view on AI is it's a super smart, dumb child. Right? The people who think you could ask it one question or write me the perfect book on blah, 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 blah. And no, it's right. You have this interactive encyclopedia. The young kids won't even know what that word means, but you have this interactive encyclopedia that knows everything, but you just have to keep harnessing it. You have to keep turning the page, and you have to now, especially as it's going through this rapid evolution, I'm seeing the hallucinations come back. So I use chat for a lot of components of my daily business life. Chat version 5 is terrible. If I could just rant against that, oh my God, I don't know what they did wrong, but all the hallucinations are back. And if you're not trained on how to just properly use AI, you're relying on this machine. It's a machine, it's a tool, and people have to use tools appropriately, right? There you go.
We're still the human in the loop.
We're still
right? That's the phrase that I've been hearing other people have said it. And that helps me when I think about AI, like what's my role in using AI? So I'm still the human in the loop, and I cannot trust that everything that AI produces is correct, accurate, verifiable, or appropriate. So I absolutely need to do my due diligence on it. But I will say it does give you a nice starting place, And I've kind of converted over to Claude. I was ChatGPT for a while. Now Claude is so polite. It's just like affirming, nice, and it always wants to help me. So kind of like it.
Yeah, that's kind of like me. I always like to help people. I'm a Claude. I'm a human
You
Claude.
are a Claude.
Alvin is the human
You
Claude.
are, because you are super generous with your time and information.
Oh, I appreciate that. Speaking of time, Sarah, we're coming up on time. All right, Sarah. So here we go. As a parent, as a higher ed professional, as a podcaster, what is the future of higher education?
That is a great question. If I had a crystal ball, I would say that we will look differently in the future, but I don't exactly know how. I don't know if I could have predicted where we'd be after COVID. So I hesitate to make concrete predictions. I'm just trying to keep up at this point, Alvin, and learn from the best that are out there and be a little bit adaptable and flexible. I think the institutions that hold on to some of the, I hate to say it, but outdated models, their financial models, their accessibility models, I think they might find, unless they have an extremely strong brand and financial resources behind them, I fear that they may be continuing to close or be forced to consolidate or merge, which is really sad to see. I never want to see an institution not flourish, right? That's not good for anyone. But I fear that could happen. So I'm just trying to do what I can to help my university think about what's coming next. And I don't know that we know, but I think it's different, right? So the marketplace is getting louder and louder, and we cannot keep saying we know better. We have to also listen and say, well, we might know what you should learn, but maybe not how you should learn it. Maybe there's different ways that we need to explore based on what our students and prospective students are saying, and the industries. What is the industry saying? How that education could be achieved and the format of it. So whether it's short-term credentials, whether it's online, any number of ways to slice and dice that.
Yeah, and I love that you do that with your podcast. You're bringing in people from industry because we need to hear as much as we can from them, because that's where our graduates are going. If they're going through grad, they're going to industry, obviously, or maybe they start their own business, things like that. But
That is industry.
yeah, exactly, it is
Business.
industry,
Entrepreneurialism.
exactly. So, thank you so much, Sarah. Awesome conversation. Let me outro my guest co-host today. He is Darius Goldman, founder and CEO at Career Bond. Darius, thank you as always.
Thank you. And
All
I
right.
continue to wave, even though this
Even
is
though-
a audio only podcast.
and our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, she's your guest. She is Dr. Sarah Holton. She's assistant provost at Carroll University and the host of Get Down to College Business podcast. I love that title. That's such a good title.
You know, Alvin, I loved this conversation. I just have one disappointment from this episode is that because
Darius was terrible.
you don't use sound effects. So
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't interrupted by a sound effect. And I secretly was hoping that something I would say could become a future sound effect, but I didn't see you pushing any buttons. So I fear that did not happen today.
Well, sorry about that. Yeah, that's a Joe thing. We'll leave those sound effects to Joe Solucio. He's the sound effect guy. He loves that stuff too. It's so funny. He too.
He does.
But no, seriously, Sarah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being a part of the EdUp Experience Podcast Network. Thanks for providing such amazing content through your podcast. So we appreciate your time, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Let's go
to insightsedu.com. Remember that URL. Because let's be honest, how much of what you're doing at work right now is actually working? It's time to inject fresh ideas and effective strategies. And Insights EDU is for these leaders that want to see results. The conversations are direct. The sessions are outstanding. And the people in the room are there to solve real problems, not protect the status quo. Insights EDU 2026 is February 17 to 19 in Fort Lauderdale. No fluff, no recycled playbooks, just what works now. Register today at insightsedu.com.
The EdUp Experience has delivered over 1,000 episodes with higher ed leaders from around the world. Now you can support the show for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life when you join before December 31st, 2025. You'll enjoy ad-free early access to episodes. Go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and secure your lifetime rate today.